Right. Welcome back, everybody, to our latest episode of The Nest. Super Bowl 56 is going to be tomorrow. And last weekend, we previewed this matchup between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams. So today, we'll be discussing some fun prop bets, as well as having a more general discussion about the game and some annual traditions that we all share. And joining me for this episode are Anirban Chakraborty and Rohan Venkatesh. Guys, how are we all doing?
Good as always, man. Good as always. I can't complain. It's Super Bowl Eve, right? So that's Saturday before. I mean, like everyone remembers the game, but I mean, a lot of people don't tend to remember what was going on the Saturday before. So here we are, Saturday before the Super Bowl. We've had 2 weeks to think about this, right? So a week ago we kind of were able to talk about what we think is going to happen, but at the end of the day, this is more than just a football game. This is kind of an event, right? An estimated more than 100 million people are going to be watching across the country with their families, with their friends, whoever that may be, right? And each and every one of them is going to be doing something unique, eating something unique, probably drinking something unique, spending it with someone unique. So, I just hope that we get to go over all the possible ranges of what most people might be doing on this occasion. This unofficial national holiday that we have. It's not an official holiday, but it effectively could be. Super Bowl, it's an excuse to eat and drink a lot. So, take it for what it is. So here we are. And we talked about the heavier stuff last time, but let's get to the fun stuff this time.
Yeah, I think Rowan really said it all there. I think it's a fun time for everyone. Monday after, a lot of people kind of tired after. It's kind of like the one
sick Monday. It's unofficially dubbed Sick Monday, except the weird part is that's this year that's Valentine's Day. So
yeah, it's an interesting collection of days all put together. So yeah, happy to discuss it here.
Yeah, definitely. So first, let's discuss a couple of these props that I just found, which are going to be fun. And then we'll actually just kind of talk about some traditions we have, or like kind of just some general topics about the Super Bowl, like what we like to make, eat that day, drink that day, any plans we have for this year. So let's just discuss a couple props. So first one is like, what is the coin toss going to be, heads or tails, just for fun? So I know the Rams are actually
tails
officially the home team.
50-50, but I'm going to.
Yeah, so the Rams are actually the home team, but since the Bengals are actually like officially designated as the home team for this year, I think the Rams are actually going to be choosing the coin toss. So Rohan says tails. I'll go with heads just for fun. And Anirban, what are you going with?
Let's say heads.
Okay, so heads, and tails. All right, let's see.
All right, so if it's tails, I get to be this time.
Yeah. I mean, okay, let's just do a couple other ones. Like, are we going to see a sack or a touchdown first? I'm going to go with the
we're
sack.
definitely going to see both. I think it's almost sure how we're going to see both. I think it's more likely we're probably going to see a touchdown first. Sacks, from what I've seen, they tend to pick up more in like the later stage efforts, right? Usually in the early stages, most quarterbacks try to build up a drive by making like short to medium range passes, and most of those either end with incomplete passes or they're successful and they carry them all the way down the field and it ends up being a touchdown. Sacks usually happen when they try to do something big, and that's usually like once a large deficit has been built up by one of the teams. And like the data, if you really get into the numbers, I mean, it does kind of tend to back this up in the sense that the second half tends to be a lot more high scoring than the first half. And a high scoring second half, I mean, I can go more into this, but I mean, last week I did say that I expect this to be a high scoring game, but I do think the bulk of that is going to be in the second half. So I wouldn't be surprised if the first like 10 or 15 minutes are probably kind of quiet.
Yeah, I mean, just to remind our viewers, so Rohan picked the Rams. I picked Cincinnati, and so did Anirban. So, and Ujan, who's not with us today, he picked LA as well. So that was sort of the breakdown from last week's episode.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, sacks generally tend to happen if if there's a high pressure situation, I mean, there's a late game drive and you got to get it downfield. Usually that only happens if you're down by a lot, and that only happens if there's been a lot of scoring by one side or the other. And since that tends to happen more in the second half, yeah, I'm going to go with a touchdown before a sack. I mean, I could be wrong, but
think. Oh, sorry, everyone. Yeah, I was gonna say. I think it also really depends on who gets the ball first, because if the Bengals start with the ball, I would say we're probably very likely to see a sack on the opening drive and throughout the game. Though of course I said last week why I don't really think this is that concerning for them. So I'll say, I'll go ahead and guess that the Rams will win the toss and the Bengals will start. So I'll say we'll see a sack before a touchdown.
Interesting.
Oh,
Okay.
that's an interesting take. I hadn't thought about that aspect of it. I mean, if you get into the game aspects of it, I mean, Joe Burrow, he does face a lot of pressure, and the Bengals offensive line is compared to the weaker of the two.
It's one of the worst in the league.
Yeah, and in the event the Bengals get the ball first, I guess it is conceivable that would happen. But your explanation is believable. My explanation is also believable. Who's going to end up being right? I don't have the level of sophistication to say, okay, here are all the numbers that would lend this probability to this event or this to that event. Probably Vegas has those down, but I'm curious to know what the numbers on that are, but I don't have them with me. But it's just an interesting exercise in speculation.
Yeah, definitely. Just a couple more. So, will the game be tied after 0-0? So this is very interesting because I don't know if it's like one team just sort of like it's never tied again. And like I never thought about that as a possibility, but it's kind of interesting to sort of look into it. So
wait,
I will say
like tied after 0-0. Like by definition, if anyone scores, it's not tied after 0-0. So
will the game be tied after the 0-0 score? So like will it be 7-7?
Will this be like an event like a scoreless draw essentially, and like it gets settled in overtime? Is that kind of what you're getting at over here?
No, I'm just saying after 0-0, when it's initially tied, will there be another point in the game when it's not 0-0 where it is a tie game, where it's like 10-10 or like in the fourth quarter or something like that? Like, will that be a situation? That's what they're asking. Will it be 7-7? Will it be something like that?
Okay, so are we going to see a non-0-0 tie early on?
Yeah, like will it be 3-3? Will both teams kick a field goal at the start? Will both teams score a touchdown initially? Or something like that.
I doubt it. I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen, but I doubt it. I mean, most of the games have kind of been prone to one team establishes a big lead and the other team makes a heroic effort, and sometimes they succeed at toppling the other team. Other times they don't.
But what about like Super Bowl 53? It was like 3-3 going into the fourth quarter.
That could happen. It very well could.
Even Super Bowl 54, it was 10-10. 49ers Chiefs, it was 10-10 until like I think the Niners got.
It just wouldn't be as great of a storyline.
10 points to make it.
It would be a much better storyline. Safe like the Bengals are down by a lot and they somehow miraculously come back.
Yeah, I think it's kind of arbitrary. It kind of depends. Like, if someone misses a field goal, then suddenly it's really unlikely to get a tie. But I think it'll be really conceivable to have like a 7-7 or something, at least early on. So.
Yeah, I totally see that. 3-3, 7-7, 10-10. I could even see it being like 17-17. Last week, the Rams, both the Bengals and the Rams, I guess not last week, 2 weeks ago, both of their games were tied late in the fourth quarter. So it's definitely conceivable that it happens again in the Super Bowl. So I'll say yes, it will probably be like 10-10. I wouldn't be surprised if it's tied in the fourth quarter. So we'll see what happens from there. Okay. And I guess just one more, I'll just ask, a successful 2-point conversion by other teams. This is just sort of an interesting prop to look at.
Yeah.
Cincinnati.
I think there's a very, very good chance that there will be at least some 2-point conversion at some point in the game by either team. I think there's an excellent chance of that.
Successful though.
Yeah, I think so. Because they wouldn't do it unless they thought that they were going to be successful. And we have data and we have analytics to basically say that if you go for a 2-point conversion,
I don't know if I'd really use that as logic because, just because they think it's successful, it's going to be.
Yeah, it's not logic, right?
Be successful.
Analytics can be wrong, but statistically speaking, that's an outlier and that's cherry picking, right? But if you're making a coaching decision, If you want to know what's going to give me a higher likelihood of success, yeah, you go with the 2-point conversion.
Right. It's a higher likelihood of success, but saying it will be successful because they believe it'll be successful. That's what I was just going after. I mean, if that was the case,
that is yeah. I guess that is the case, right? Because from a probability standpoint, right, 2-point conversion gets you 2 points, extra point gets you 1 point, right? Assuming that the success rate on 2-point conversions is at least half as good as what it is on extra points. On average, of course, if you discount the fact that extra points are like actually not extra points, they are taking from a standard range. But if the probability of making a 2-point conversion is more than is better than half as likely as an extra point, then you're better off as a coach going for the 2-point conversion, because the expected number of points that you get is higher from the 2-point conversion than from an extra point. Expected points just being the points on the table multiplied by the probability that you get on any given try.
I will say this as well. So the last Super Bowl, I'm talking about the last Super Bowl championship game where a team attempted a 2-point conversion. That was Super Bowl 52 when the Philadelphia Eagles actually attempted a 2-point conversion twice during the game. And actually both times it was unsuccessful. They ended up winning the game, so it didn't matter at the time. Really, it didn't matter at all in the end, but that was the last time a team attempted a 2-point conversion, but they were unsuccessful. The last time a team successfully completed a 2-point conversion was Super Bowl 51 when the Patriots, of course, converted 2-point conversions in a row against the Falcons.
Well, they had to in that case. That was a desperation attempt. Of course, it paid off, but I don't think the level of analytics was as sophisticated as it is right now.
Yeah, so I'm just saying the last Super Bowl where a team actually successfully went for 2 was Super Bowl 51. So it's actually been 5 Super Bowls in that process, 5 years. And I guess the last time a team actually attempted a 2-point conversion was 4 years ago at this point. So those are just kind of the general statistics. Obviously, every year it's different.
But this year in particular, I mean, a lot of unconventional kind of gutsy moves are more common, like going for it on 4th down. It's way more common this year than it was in previous years. And that I feel like is especially common to this year. I think that the analytics are kind of catching up to it. I mean, coaches kind of had a general idea that, and the statisticians kind of had a general idea that going for it on 4th and short is generally a good idea, but they probably didn't have enough numbers to really back up their thesis on it. This year, you saw this like explosion of 4th and short attempts.
And not just that, also like field goals from like 50+ range when you would have punted ordinarily. Things like a lot of the optimization of the game is kind of like football's version of 25-foot 3-pointers.
Oh yeah, I mean, you are seeing in a lot of ways that the numbers just taking over everything, right? Because they wouldn't be doing this unless they had concrete numbers to back this up, right? Because as a coach, going for 2 versus going for the extra point is a pretty intimidating decision to make. Think about it, right? You have everything to lose. If you don't make it, you're going to get all the negative scrutiny in the world. They're going to say, oh, why don't you just go for the extra point? So for them to make that decision, they got to have really, really strong evidence and strong conviction that this is a good move to make. And they don't just make those moves willy-nilly, right? I mean, they're not stupid people. I mean, they got data to back this up.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so yeah, let's just now do a more general discussion. I guess there was one other thing I looked up, which I think would just be fun to discuss. Will there be any turnovers in this game? Like anything?
Of course.
For a touchdown.
Of course. Of course. Like turnovers, return for a touchdown. You mean like
interception, pick six, fumble, return for a touchdown, something like that?
Sure. Super Bowls always have drama.
I mean, it would be interesting to say yes, but that's not really a regular occurrence. So if I had to pick one way or the other, I'm gonna slightly lean on the no side, but only slightly.
I can't even remember the last Super Bowl where there were no turnovers by either team. Like I just can't think of one.
And if it's just turnovers,
I mean, there are hardly any
if it's just turnovers that resulted in a touchdown on that same play, probably not.
Yeah, there are hardly like any NFL games without a turnover. So it would have to be a pick six or something. I mean, a pick six or something like that. It's a Super Bowl, adrenaline's running. We
I mean, the
all
last
know.
pick six in a Super Bowl was probably Super Bowl 51 when Brady, of course, threw that interception to Robert Alford, which made it 21-0 at the time for the Falcons. So, I mean, that was probably the last pick six I could think of in the Super Bowl, that is. So it's always interesting to sort of look at these questions. But yeah, I mean,
I'm just curious.
yeah.
I'm just curious if you have if you have any numbers on that. Like, how many times has a pick six been thrown in the Super Bowl? And if it has been multiple times, that example that you just gave, is that the only time for a QB to throw a pick six in the Super Bowl and then win?
I mean, the other ones I can think of, that doesn't, oh, so I mean, so I guess there are the other ones I can think of was New Orleans against Indianapolis in 2009. Tracy Porter had the pick six that basically sealed the game for the Saints. That was 31-17. In 2009, that was Super Bowl 44. The year before, Steelers Cardinals, James Harrison had his famous 100-yard pick six.
I
And
mean,
the
like
Steelers won the Super Bowl.
intercepting it in the end zone and then carrying it all like
Yeah, 100-yard interception.
Because that's like super. I know back in the day, Champ Bailey did it back in the day.
That wasn't actually an interception for a touchdown, though. That was an interception he was actually tackled at the 1-yard line. So that was a little different.
Okay.
It was actually not the Super Bowl as well. That was actually in the AFC divisional round against New England in 2005, I believe. But I'm trying to think, like Ty Law in 2001, when it was Patriots Rams, he had a pick six against Kurt Warner. So actually, Kurt Warner was the quarterback of the 2001 Rams and the 2008 Cardinals. In both games, he threw a pick six, and in both games, he lost because largely due to that pick six kind of factoring in the end. So,
Well, a pick six is like a 13-point swing if you think about it. So I mean, that's not really. I guess that makes sense. That would be pretty much a lost 13 points. You're probably gonna lose.
except for Brady in 2016. Yeah, so okay, I guess now we can just go into general. I mean, let's just sort of see. Okay, so let's just talk about sort of general kind of like traditions we have for this game. Obviously, like all of us are excited. Like even though the Patriots are not in the Super Bowl, we're all very excited for this
It's a de
matchup.
facto national holiday. You got to celebrate.
Exactly. So I mean, I don't know. I'll just start off. Like I think when I was in high school or like before college,
It's America. It's football. Like what could be more American than this, right? Like
yeah, exactly.
Wings, beer, sports.
like,
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was always like the Super Bowl. I kind of always viewed it as like, like when I was in like high school, middle school, I'd probably just invite a lot of people over to my house for the game. And that was like always a lot of fun. Like we'd order pizza, we'd order like chicken wings, have soda, and then I don't know, it was just a lot of fun. Mozzarella sticks, all those appetizers, French fries, mozzarella sticks.
I'm gonna get full on snacks. I'm probably not even gonna have a real dinner. I'm probably just gonna have like a bunch of snacks.
Actually, that's what happened last year. So last year, ordered pizza from a local pizza joint, Sorrento's. If any of you are from Massachusetts, love the place. Terrific pizza altogether, love it. So we ordered pizza.
Not a sponsor of this video, if anyone is wondering.
Yeah, but I mean, anyways, like I mean, for me, it was always like a place like a pizza joint where we'd get like pizza, and then I'd order a couple of appetizers. And this year, I made myself very sure, or last year, I say, I made sure like on how many appetizers I'd eat, so make sure I wouldn't get full before the pizza. Because it has happened before where I just get stuffed on the appetizers. And then when the pizza comes, I can't eat anything because I'm already stuffed. Like it has happened before. So I have to be very careful about that, right? So.
Well, pizza, it's interesting because I also used to invite friends over and get pizza and mozzarella. A lot of the same things you're describing. So it's really interesting how we both have the same middle school, high school traditions, right?
I mean,
I was saying both at the same event for the Super Bowl. Right?
I mean, it's more than just about football, right? I mean, this is basically, I mean, technically baseball is our national pastime, but this is the de facto national pastime that's kind of emerged, right? I mean, that's a whole.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting.
But I mean, like, there's very few like one-off, like one day winner take all sports events where like this is it. Super Bowl is basically that. It is America's most popular sport, despite the fact that it's not officially the national pastime. But the way that the NFL has basically taken a hold in American culture, for better or for worse, in a lot of ways, and we've gone into various aspects of that in the previous episode. But just the way people celebrate it, right? It's a beautiful thing, right? It's a beautiful thing across the country, and whichever team you're cheering for, Um, and I know, and I know the NFL might have a checker record on a lot of other things, but if we can all just be united in celebrating this event, right, and being able to stuff our faces in whatever we want to stuff our face in, whatever you want to do, right, whatever. I mean, like Thanksgiving might be the national day where we just all get to stuff ourselves with food, but this is kind of the post Thanksgiving excuse, right? And for all those of you who are on your New Year's resolutions, I guess tomorrow is going to be your day to break it. So whether that's good news or bad news, I don't know, but Super Bowl Sunday, here it is, and here we go.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's really special, I guess, especially when you think about how many people watch it who have absolutely no affiliation of football at all during the season. I mean, I used to watch the Super Bowl like every year, even though I didn't really start following football until maybe the last 9, 10 years. But it's still something that everyone watches, even if maybe half the people watching don't actually know the quarterbacks on either of the teams or something. It's really
Oh yeah, you watch
unique.
for the halftime show.
Um, yeah, for the halftime show,
the
the
halftime
advertise.
show and the ads, because like companies
Um,
pay a lot of money to have their ads on the Super Bowl.
yeah, the ads are a huge source, and also relate to what you said, Rowan, about the one-off event. I think that's really important because the NBA Finals, baseball, they're all like potentially up to 7 games. But even that being said, right? I remember when there was like a game 7 or something in the World Series, and that even then that doesn't. That's technically a one-off game if you think about it, but that still doesn't generate the same kind of lore and kind of a sense of
Yeah,
a
I mean,
bunch of people watching the
it,
game
it
compared
should.
to football.
I mean, it should. I mean, the closest we've gotten to that in recent years is probably that Cubs, Cleveland. They
What about
were they
Houston
were
and
called the Indians.
LA?
Now the
Houston and
Guardians. But
LA the
like,
next year, right?
but
Astros
yeah,
Dodgers
but
in
that
2017.
2016 World Series Game 7, that was an epic Game 7, and I think that drew a record number of viewers, at least in the modern era for
I
for
think that was
baseball,
like
at least.
40 million, but that's still like nothing compared to like the 96 million who
I
will
mean, like
tune in from last
I mean,
year.
I mean, very few events capture the kind of ratings that the Super Bowl generates. I mean, even if it is a Game 7 in a championship for any of the other major sports, the closest thing I can probably think of is the 2010 gold medal Olympic hockey game between the U.S. and Canada, which if I have my numbers correct on this, I think that attracted almost half the country. I think almost half the country tuned in to watch that game. So I mean, so similar to the Super Bowl, right? You have a bunch of people who don't have any clue about football, just tuning in because it's the cultural event.
Yeah.
Probably the closest thing we had to that was in 2010, who probably a bunch of people didn't really know much about hockey, but nationalism, Olympics, right? What a better time to talk about that than now when the Winter Olympics are underway. But or halfway through that, of course, no NHL players this time. But that's a side note. But I just thought I'd throw that in.
Yeah, and but it is, again, it's really interesting just how, like, just compared to everything, just how ingrained the concept of a Super Bowl is just in marketing. It's like the biggest individual sports marketing thing that exists. I mean, you walk into any grocery store leading up to maybe 2, 3 weeks before the Super Bowl, you're gonna have a section of Super Bowl foods, which is literally what my brother was just describing: jalapeno poppers, TGIF mozzarella sticks, chicken wings, or whatever you can imagine, any kind of, I guess, like American kind of like fast food appetizers. It's not only that, but then there's also yeah, then there's also like a lot of advertisements like you guys talked about. Just like the marketing and commercial aspect of the Super Bowl just completely eclipses really any other, I dare say, any single event, sport or non-sport in this country. I mean, I'd even argue, I guess the
Maybe
one exception would be the
Thanksgiving.
holiday season. That would be the one
Thanksgiving is probably
exception.
closest to that.
Thanksgiving, yeah, I'd say in individual day, because the thing about the holiday season is realistically it begins in like Thanksgiving. Or it begins
I
earlier
mean,
and earlier every year.
I
But
guess Christmas dinner is like a thing for a lot of families.
yeah, you could say it. So I guess and definitely in terms of, I'd say like Super Bowl in terms of its kind of the sense of like getting a bunch of people together to watch a television, like kind of, and then kind of, and again, I think the stress is that this is on a Sunday night. This is when a lot of people have work the next day. Well, anyone really who's working, no one really gets a specific day off unless they take a holiday, really, for most
Actually,
cases.
Cincinnati schools this year have actually marked February 14th as a holiday. So that will be interesting.
So I guess they'll get it off, which is really
Okay,
nice. But
no one has to do a sick Monday thing.
yeah, so I guess for them it's already taken care of. But you can just think about the draw for that, right? The draw that on July 4th you'll get the next day off. New Year's you'll get the next day off. Christmas you'll get the next day off. Thanksgiving, I mean, so on and so forth. Super Bowl, you for most cases you don't, and people just still tune in anyway and watch until maybe 11, and then some people we say the game ends at 11. A lot of people keep watching for another hour or whatever just to see any last ads, just to see like the post game, just to kind of wrap up hanging out with their friends and family before going home and going to bed. So I'd say that's something that is worth talking about, the fact that it can get so many people to really hang out and do this kind of thing on a Sunday. That's actually like when you have work the next day. It's pretty unique in that regard too, I'd say.
Also, with regards to holidays, I think it's a little different because holiday dinners are usually a little bit more fancy, like gourmet type of food. So it's a little bit more, and by gourmet,
Oh
I
yeah,
mean
this is junk food galore. Super Bowl's
Exactly.
junk food.
Like it's not like really like anything like fancy at all. So I think that's like one of the big things. Like it's very kind of like just sort of like wing, Dorito chips, like any type of chips, dip, all that stuff you eat.
If it's
So
crunchy, if it's salty, if it has grease and cheese, then it's good to go.
That's
Or
the
just
thing. You
ice
need
cream,
lots
right?
of
What about ice
cheese. You need
cream?
lots of cheese on it, whatever it is. Melted cheese, a lot of melted cheese.
Garlic bread, another one, classic.
Yeah, I
And a
think
ton of carbs. That's another thing. You gotta
it's
you gotta
true.
have those
But
in there.
hey, you gotta. It's part of the experience, I'd say. It's kind of like you said, Rohan. It's kind of like,
No,
I guess in that regard,
players
it's all,
jeopardize their health on the field, and then we get to jeopardize our health in another way.
I get, yeah.
So just a little bit of context to our viewers, but all of us are actually in different parts of the country. So I'm actually in California, Nirban himself is in Maryland, and Rohan is in Tennessee. So that basically means what I'm trying to say is we're not going to actually be able to watch the game together tomorrow. So to Rohan and Nirban, I am curious to sort of hear like your plans for tomorrow. Like who are you planning to watch with? What are you planning to eat? Let's start
I
with
mean,
Rohan.
I got no plans right now. I'm just gonna chill here by myself. I'm gonna watch alone, but I got snacks planned, right? I got a bunch of stuff, right? I'm not stranger to the concept of having a party for one.
I mean, Rohan, we
That's
saw plenty of Super Bowls together, right? So over the years.
Oh yeah. Back in the day, right? The Seahawks one, the Falcons one, plenty of classics. And even
Really from 2014 through 17, we saw all those Super Bowls together, up to the Eagles. Patriots.
Oh yeah. Even the Eagles one, and that's one that I traveled to watch, and of course it didn't end the way I wanted to end. But that's kind of what you get, right? Yeah.
And if my memory serves correctly, your stopover for that Super Bowl was in Philadelphia too.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was in Philadelphia. Yes, and I saw a ton of Eagles gear while I was there. I saw some on the way to Albany, but traveling back, I saw more. It was all over the place.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think no, so that sounds good. Like, what are you planning to like eat tomorrow? Like, what's sort of on the menu for tomorrow?
Oh, probably spring rolls, nachos. What else?
Ice cream, right? Some sort of ice cream.
I'm definitely gonna have ice cream. I do have that in the fridge. I might go for some pizza, right? I might go for that, right? Snacks wise, I might end up making some Indian chaat for all you know, right? That like try to mix it up, right? Throw that into the mix. I do have like all sorts of chutneys in the fridge, so why not throw those in, right? On whatever whether it's like bread or popper or whatever it may be, right? Like you name it, right?
It's kind of funny because like I think when we first met, Rohan, like you introduced me to those jalapeno poppers. Like I probably had them at some point before, but like you actually introduced me to them because they were so good.
I mean,
and then we got
granted,
the
I didn't
Super
make
Bowl.
them. Those are frozen, and I heated
Yeah,
them
but
up.
you introduced me to them as like a really popular like dish for like the Super Bowl and stuff like that. So that was really cool.
Dude, it's a classic junk food, like poppers, mozzarella sticks,
I mean,
Um,
mozzarella sticks I had before, but like poppers, I actually had not really had too many of those until like really I met you. So that's kind of funny.
oh, I'm honored to hear that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
that was a fun.
Jalapeno poppers and crab rangoons both involve very large amounts of cream cheese.
Well, it depends on if it's a cream cheese popper or if it's a cheddar popper. They come in different varieties. However, I had tried various twists on it. I have had paneer poppers in the past. Those are pretty good as well. If you do
Oh
if you
yeah,
do want
deep foods, right? Deep
if you
foods.
if you do want if you don't want to take an existing food, if you want to Indianize it a little bit, then that's a good way to go for that.
I don't know if you guys ever used to see ZTV, but I
Yes,
remember
sorry,
in
sorry, yeah, sorry to all of our non-brown viewers out there if you're getting confused, but just throwing that
hey,
in there.
it's good kind of cultural exchange, I'd say.
Yeah,
But yeah, on ZTV, I remember when they first came out with Paneer Poppers. I think it was like 2010 or something. I think it was Deep
it's
Foods
around
or
that time.
whatever. Yeah, so they were just out. I think it's really interesting because I think around that year, that's when you actually started seeing a lot of kind of maybe like kind of different
Indianized fast food.
yeah, Indianized fast like there that's when non-pizza really entered, I think, like marketing that I saw. That's when paneer poppers entered, which both are kind of like takes on more like kind of like western like more like kind of American fast food with Indian flavors, and I think
Actually,
it's really interesting how that's become more common.
no, actually, right now I got some samosas where the filling is Indo-Chinese noodles. So that's
Yeah,
like the fusion
exactly.
of the fusion of the fusion.
It's like a fusion on maybe three counts. Yeah, I mean it's really interesting though. I just want to say because like I feel like around a decade ago, a little over that is when we really started to see that introduced. So yeah, I mean paneer is of course like it's really it's a really a unique cheese in that regard because well it's a cheese that's profoundly really resistant to melting. It won't really that's an important thing about it that's really appealing to a lot of cooking, that it doesn't actually melt when it's cooked. It just gets like it might get you can do a lot of things with it you can't do with like cheddar cheese or mozzarella. You can fry
Yeah.
it, you can make it in curries, you can do a lot of things. Like for a paneer popper, for example, if you try, you can't really do that with a cheddar popper, right? Or like to the same extent because the cheddar is what melts versus the paneer popper. Like it won't melt; it'll be like kind of firm as a food. So if you like kind of firm more, if you're not really used to that kind of melting texture of cheese, particularly I think when it's leftovers, like that's kind of the thing. Like for me, when we used to have those dips, I remember we'd sometimes make those dips with kind of like goopy cheese and stuff. Those tasted really nice, but then like the next day, there's kind of like a little hard. It was a little weird, the texture. So like versus if it's firm, that's like a benefit that you know that the next day will taste just as good as the first day.
Oh yeah. I mean, especially with paneer, I mean, like you can toss it in. You can make a bhuji out of it. You can grind it up. You can put all sorts of masalas on it. Like you name it, right? You can do all sorts of stuff with it, right?
In
I
paneer
mean,
kati rolls as well, right?
yeah,
Delicious. Oh my
yeah.
goodness. There's just so much you can make with paneer. So yeah, I
But if
mean,
you think about it, right, there is a way that this can also be incorporated into typical football tradition. Because think about it, right? Think about it. What is the most like iconic football tradition? It's the tailgate, right? What do people do during tailgates? They like barbecues, right? Well, guess what?
well,
Guess
they
what?
mainly like to drink. So
Yeah, that's there too. That's there too. But imagine the tailgate, right? You have a barbecue over there. A barbecue is basically a proxy for a tandoor oven, if you think about it, right? You got the charcoal in there, you got the high heat. And what's to say you can't do a football tailgate where you're making paneer tikka?
yeah,
What
you
better
can. Definitely.
what better way to spice up the tailgate experience?
I
No,
guess you
definitely.
could. The
Yeah.
challenge is I think it's a little more because I guess when you're making paneer tikka, it depends on the format, but
Imagine,
it
like
depends.
convoy of pickup trucks showing up to Gillette and like badass just ripping out those grills from the back of your truck and make like paneer tikka.
You need a lot of, I guess when you're making paneer tikka on a grill, you'd probably need to skewer it with paneer pieces, bell peppers, onions, and then you do
Oh
that all
yeah,
together.
oh
So
yeah.
How long does the
You can do it.
marinade take to make though?
it's pretty easy.
It's
It's pretty
yeah,
easy.
it's 20
You
minutes.
could literally like, yeah, paneer is
Not
good in
even,
that regard
not
because
even.
yeah, because the thing about marinade for paneer is that the flavor is not, the idea is not about the flavor really going into the paneer, it's more coating it, right? That's the difference
Yeah.
between paneer and other proteins like chicken. With chicken, you have to marinate, or like to get a good taste, you want to marinate for a long time so the flavor gets into the meat. It's a lot, it takes longer. With paneer, like the paneer is kind of like easy enough to eat as an individual piece that even if the flavor is just on the outside, you'll still get it when you eat it. Versus with chicken, when you take a bite, you're not eating the whole thing. So if there's no flavor on the inside, then the deeper you get into it, like you're just not going to taste anything.
That's a good point. That's why I like to cut my paneer thin, because that way you're maximizing your surface area to volume ratio. So that, because my main issue when I eat paneer tikka at restaurants is that they make the paneer chunk so ginormous that I just get a little bit of masala on the edge, and you bite into this ginormous chunk and it's just paneer and no masala. So
it's interesting because I bet that's kind of, well, honestly, I feel like it makes more sense for restaurants to cut it smaller because in general, like our brain kind of tricks us into thinking that a lot of a small thing is more than a few big pieces.
that's
you
also
know?
more work. There's
Yeah.
more cutting.
I mean, it's more cutting, but I mean, the way I think about it, like you already have to dice onions, you already have to dice tomatoes, like really fine. So like,
my
how much
experience,
more
a lot
work
of
is
those are
that?
cut pretty thick as well. So
Well, not tomatoes. You can't cut tomatoes thick because they have to melt when you're cooking them.
That's
So they have to
true.
be pretty thin.
That's true, but it also means that a good chunk of the time it could also just be a ginormous rush job.
That's true, but hopefully, you know, top of the line restaurant would take a little bit of care with that.
But my point is, if you can do a tailgate, if you can do a barbecue where you're making hot dogs, hamburgers, whatever, the standard American fare, right? What stops paneer tikka from making its way into there?
It doesn't. We just
And
need to introduce it.
introducing a new cuisine to American football culture.
We just need to introduce it then. Like nothing is stopping it from being there, right? It's just who's
Let's all
sort of
bring in a
like
convoy of pickup trucks.
I mean, if you're willing to start that at some point next year, then I'm totally down to like trying that out. Samosas as well. That's probably a really popular snack for tomorrow, right?
Maybe not for the Super Bowl.
What about
Generally
those
speaking,
samosas?
sure, but as a Super Bowl snack, I don't know.
But the mini samosas, you can have so many of them.
Outside of like, I mean, outside of Desi households, I'm not quite sure how popular it would be, but I
We're
wouldn't
talking
rule it
about
out.
paneer as a dish, right? So, I mean, outside of Desi households, like paneer, samosas, I mean, people who probably like those mini like samosas where you can have like palak paneer in it or like chicken tikka samosas, those are delicious. And they're like small, mini, you can have like many of them. Those are really good snacks.
I think we're pretty
I
much
am not
rehashing
disputing
the
how
deep
delicious
frozen aisle.
samosas are, but if you're trying to make a point that these are somehow popular, yeah, they got you still got to go a long way for it to really catch on.
We're talking about paneer, right? Introducing
Yeah.
paneer tikka. So why not also introduce samosas, which is so easy to just heat up, right? You just fry them, right? That's it.
But it doesn't. But it doesn't go with the barbecuing tailgate experience. You could, but that'll be like its own separate thing. The reason I brought up paneer tikka is that it's almost like perfectly suited for the barbecue, the tailgate experience.
What about
That's
dosa?
true. You do need.
What about
you do need to
dosa? You just
fry
need a
it.
heater, right, for that dosa to make that.
You can make that on a tawa. You can just make that on like you can make that on your stove, right? You don't need the same kind of high heat, that high flame. You don't need because anything else they make, like I don't know, like dosa or whatever it may be, right? You don't need the same kind of heat. You're it's okay if you don't get that charred taste. That's what sets tandoori cooking apart from most other cooking. And even though like the standard American barbecue fare, hot dogs, hamburgers, etc., even though it's not like tandoori per se, it shares a commonality in the sense that it strives to get that charred finish, right? And in that sense, paneer tikka probably has a lot in common with your standard American tailgate fare.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, okay, so just kind of going back to the initial question. So, Rohan, your plan is you're just going to probably watch it at your apartment or your place, and you're probably just going to have some snacks with you, right? Like, I mean, what are the snacks you just mentioned?
Spring rolls, nachos. Depends, right? It depends on really what I mean. I have like peanuts and cashews, right? I also have some some hot mix and masala snacks. So
okay, so it seems like you have a pretty good menu.
I got some like some mint flavored chips as well. So I pretty much, and I got some cheese and crackers as well. So yeah, I got myself covered on that front. I mean, I could make real food, But realistically speaking, once I've listed all the snacks, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm just like stuffed and full before halftime.
Yeah, that has happened to me way too
And
many
so,
times.
and so I'm probably just gonna jump straight to dessert after that. I mean, if I do feel like having a real meal, I'll probably just heat up a pizza. But
I
I'll
don't know
probably
if
just
you
end up
remember
skipping to
this,
dessert.
and maybe my memory, because it has been a while, but during Super Bowl 49, which was Patriots Seahawks 7 years ago, I think after the game, since the Patriots won, we had
We had
like,
cheesecake.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was
we had
cheesecake.
cheesecake and like non-alcoholic cider, because at the time we
Yep.
were not 21. So we
Yeah.
got non-alcoholic cider
Yep.
and cheesecake. And that was
Yep.
sort of our Super Bowl sort of like celebration for that, which was pretty cool.
Except, I mean, I got that cider like before the game, before we knew whether the Patriots were going to win or
Do
not.
you
So I guess that's
do you remember like we went to that grocery store and it was like packed because
Oh,
we're
yeah.
in upstate New York. It is like we just see a bunch of New York Giants like gear everywhere. It was like so weird. I mean, it was kind of strange. Like I remember I was wearing like a Patriots jersey. I was so amped up, and then I see a bunch of people wearing like Giants jerseys, Giants jackets, and I was like, all right, let me just kind of cover up and make sure they don't see this. Like I don't know why, but I was sort of like wary of any heckling that went on. So that was sort of my experience.
Well, if they heckled you, you could always just go, well, yeah, guess who's in the Super Bowl and guess who's not.
I mean, that was sort of what ended up happening for the rest of the 2010s, right? So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I
So,
think,
yeah, I mean, the Giants haven't really had like much of really any success, but they have been able to. I mean, they were successful at being a thorn in the Patriots' side. So I guess that's the satisfaction that they have.
yeah, definitely. But going back to that point, I'm just trying to think like Super Bowl 51, we did like a big grocery store run that day with some other friends. And that was a lot of fun. And then Super Bowl 52, we kind of did the same thing again. And that was sort of like my last year in college. And then after that, like Super Bowl 53, I was actually at the game. So that was a very cool, unique experience. And then Super Bowl 54, I watched with a friend in Washington, D.C. I was actually there for like a meeting. So I ended up just sort of meeting up with a friend who lived there, watched the Super Bowl there. And last year, due to COVID, it was just sort of watching at my own house. So yeah, I mean, this is going to be interesting. I'm planning to meet up with a few friends, and we're just going to watch and likely either order pizza or sandwiches, some sort of dinner, and then I'm going to probably get a couple like bags of chips and some sort of dip and maybe guacamole with like nachos, something like that. I haven't
So
really
the thing
fully
with guacamole
decided.
is make your own. Store-bought guacamole, it's highly acidic, and it just kind of tastes a little off, right? Make your own, buy your own avocados, mash it up. You can buy your own pico. I mean, you can buy pico. I wouldn't go through the process of chopping up the tomatoes and onions yourself because that's a lot of work. But for some reason, whenever I've gotten store-bought guac, it's always way too sour, way too salty.
Yeah, like making the guacamole from avocado just has like a different vibe because I think it's just fresh and it's like homemade. So there's like an extra kind of like, I don't know, it just tastes a lot better.
And by the way, shout out to my dad. He's a master at this. I don't know if you're watching, but if you are, I'm just giving you a shout out.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think in general, there's just a lot of good food. So, I mean, I think, and then for dessert, we'll likely have some ice cream or something like that. Maybe a cake or something like that. I don't entirely know the whole menu. I actually have to go probably shopping tomorrow again to just get a couple of like appetizers, some items for the game. Likely we'll either order pizza or some sandwiches or some wings, chicken wings from a wing stop potentially or somewhere. So I don't know entirely my plan yet, but we are going to have a very good time tomorrow for sure, watching the game and absolutely munching on some delicious food. I just don't know entirely what it is. I'll probably be able to say, and just for our
Munch on
listeners,
whatever until you get full,
for
and
our
then eat some
listeners,
more.
yeah, and just for the listeners, we will be back tomorrow, and that is a promise. We will be back tomorrow to recap Super Bowl 56. So stay tuned for that episode, and then I'll be able to tell you exactly what I ended up having for food, in addition to recapping this matchup. So we will be back tomorrow.
We are not done. We are not done. The nest is here to stay.
Exactly. And just one more note, even after the Super Bowl, like if you remember last year, for all of our listeners, we started talking about the Celtics, the Red Sox, and the Bruins. So we will expand and talk about the other teams again after football season. Of course, we'll still talk about the Patriots in the offseason. There's so much to talk about, right? Free agency, the draft, and just the offseason in general. But we will
so much going on elsewhere, right?
other
Celtics
teams.
making some big moves. I mean, Bruins kind of like a little rocky lately, but had a resurgent win today. And then of
Yeah,
course,
and when
baseball,
actually
baseball,
baseball
you got
decides to
a
come into
lockout
an
pending.
agreement.
So yeah, I mean, we wanted to live up to our name and say this is a New England sports talk, like talk show. I mean, Patriots obviously have been capturing our attention for the last so and so number of months, but we wanted to give our attention to the rest of the sports, the rest of the teams that do play in New England, and that's how we want to deliver what we have to our audience out there.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think this is like a little bit of a appropriate story to tell because this is like a Super Bowl related story. I don't know when else I'd be able to share it. So there's a little bit of a backstory with Rohan. So Rohan and I, we went to the same college, right? And when I met him, it was September of 2014. So at the time, if you are a Patriots like supporter, the Patriots at the time were like, they hadn't won a Super Bowl since 2004. So it had been 10 years. And of course, they had been very good in that span, but they kept on coming up short in the big moments up to 2014. So I meet Rohan and we sort of like, that's when we sort of became friends. We started meeting up for games. And then Super Bowl 49 happened, Patriots Seahawks. And of course, we watched that together. And the Patriots win. And like, I don't know, it felt almost superstitious at that point. I'm like, okay, finally, I watch a Super Bowl with Rohan. First time I meet him, they win. Like, he's good luck. And then Super Bowl 51 happens. And like, just the nature of that, they come back from 28-3, right? And I'm like, okay, I need to watch every game with Rohan because this is clearly some good luck. Because I don't know, to win both Super Bowl 49 and 51, given the circumstances, just amazing.
Of course, there's some other superstitions that I think the first half of that game, I was wearing your Pats hat and then I took it off.
Yes, for the Falcons one, right? Super Bowl 51.
Yeah, I took it off like during the halftime show as Lady Gaga was performing.
Yeah, definitely. We should probably talk a little bit about the halftime show, right? We should at least give like a minute or so. So, I mean, this is a very good performance. I mean, coming up, right? Kendrick Lamar, Mary Blige, Eminem, Dr. Dre,
Kendrick Lamar?
Snoop Dogg. Yeah.
Kendrick Lamar's.
Yes,
I know it's Eminem, Mary J. Blige, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg. Oh, and Kendrick Lamar.
I'm a big fan of all of them. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they have tomorrow, like what songs they perform. Like, it's like they're all sort of in the rap genre. So I'm interested to sort of see like how they perform it tomorrow, like what type of collaborations they do between different songs. So that's going to be very cool for me to see. I'm a big fan of all of them.
First time seeing hip hop as the headliner event at the halftime show. So that's going to be interesting to watch. I'm all for that.
Yeah, it'll be I mean they've all individually been like so successful. And it is really interesting because I think Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg collectively with I guess Lamar, Eminem, and sorry, wait, I'm blanking on the name of the fifth person.
Blige.
Sorry?
Mary J. Blige.
Yeah, Mary J. Blige. Yeah. So yeah, the five of them, like it just kind of interesting because their professional careers really span different decades, you know. So I mean, it just reaches a really wide audience. I mean, a lot of people our age kind of probably grew up listening when Eminem and Kendrick Lamar were probably more well known.
I remember when Eminem was like up and coming.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you go before like Mary J. Blige, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, or I guess like a decade or two before that too. So it just kind of like as in when they were releasing a lot of their music. So and it's interesting because Dr. Dre also I guess had the kind of like collaborations with Eminem and Kendrick Lamar especially early on. So yeah, it'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah, and just before we conclude, Anirban, do you just want to share what your plans are for tomorrow and just in general what you're planning to do?
Yeah, my plan is I'll be seeing with our family friend Pratik in the Maryland, so that'll be he kindly offered to host me, so that'll be really nice. So I'll be watching with him and his wife, Shreya. So that'll be really fun. And in terms of eating, I think we're gonna order some pizza from somewhere, so pretty standard in that regard. I'm gonna bring some chips and some salsa. I was actually, it's interesting that Rohan brought that point up because I was considering getting either guac or salsa, but actually at the store I saw this condiment called guacamole salsa that looks kind of interesting as the both worlds, and it's a pretty big jar.
Before. It's okay, but it's not guacamole. if you
But, like-
buy a thing that's guac, like it's not.
But like, will it? Well, like, I mean, I guess like I know it won't have the texture. I know that, but if it has kind of the taste dish of it, then
Look,
maybe.
if you just want guac, I would say buy store-bought pico de gallo and buy your own avocados. Mash the avocados, just pour the pico de gallo in, and mix it up, call it good.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I guess
yeah.
I'll do that then.
Rohan
In-
is like a nachos expert, so I would
Right.
consult him on anything with nachos.
In any case, I'll do that. Maybe I'll get some. Maybe I'll get a good queso or something to go with it. I don't know if you have any recommendations on that. Rohan.
Not particularly on queso, right? I mean, because
I guess
most of the
white
time when I make nachos,
queso. I guess Tostitos is the popular.
I do prefer
brand.
queso blanco over like the conventional yellow Tostitos queso.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna get queso blanco with it because I'm kind of in charge of the chips. So now that I think about it, I'll probably get. So I'll get chips like
But you
tortilla
can stop
chips.
there. Like, if you want to make it interesting, you got to pour some beans in there. Pico. If you really want to spice things up, put some milk cheese on
Sour
there.
cream.
Sour cream. Yep, that's another one. Yeah, like I mean, I put taco sauce on mine.
I mean, yeah, any of those flavorings will be really good.
Chipotle sauce, like cilantro crema. Like there's all sorts of stuff you can put on it. Like it's
There's
not,
a lot of
it's-
things. I mean, you can even
it's a free for all.
yeah. Also, another thing that really transformed nachos, in my opinion, are actually crumbled Doritos on top, or using Doritos as the nacho base instead of tortilla chips is pretty
Doritos.
interesting.
As if we haven't gotten enough advertisements for Doritos already. We're probably going to see a ton of that tomorrow.
Oh
Definitely.
yeah, trust me. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of these days, it's interesting because there are a lot of kind of flavor tortilla chips on the market. Like there are definitely brands that sell like pico de gallo tortilla chips or like cheddar or like cheese powdered tortilla chips, which in principle are kind of similar to what Doritos has been trying to do with their flavored versions, right? So I definitely think there's a lot of kind of consumer appeal to that. And I know that when I used to get nachos from a place near me in college, if we had Doritos, it would just taste really good to just crumble them over it and then just kind of have that meal. Especially because over time, I mean, inevitably in nachos the chips get kind of soggy. So if you have like the kind of freshly kind of crumbled Doritos, it always adds that crunch that you really look for with nachos. So I think tomorrow I'm not gonna mix them. I'm probably gonna bring the sauce separately, and then people can mix however they like. Because otherwise, I think if you just start with everything in it and it gets a little soggy, then like the next day is just like again, the next day it's like okay, it's really soggy now. Maybe it's not as tasty, So
Okay, so that's going to be a wrap for our preview to what we will be eating
Well,
tomorrow.
I guess we can speculate on the other props, like what's the color of the gear that's gonna be poured on the coach. I'm gonna go blue. I'm just gonna throw that pick out there. It's
I'll just say red.
orange.
Orange, because it's
Usually the color.
orange is
when you
most
play mini
typical,
games.
but nothing is typical now.
orange due to the Bengals, right? So I picked Cincinnati to win, so I'll go with
Oh
orange.
yeah, that is true.
And I guess the Rams will be blue and yellow, so
It-
they'll start with some lemonade and then with some blue raspberry soda or something.
that's yeah. I'm just curious. I mean, so obviously, Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth are gonna have the call tomorrow on the game. So how many times do you think Chris Collinsworth is gonna say, "Now here's a guy," because that's his catchphrase.
I mean, that's
right?
his catchphrase. So he's probably going to say that like 10, 12 times, right? For Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, really anyone notable, he'll probably say that.
Yeah,
right?
if you were to make a game out of that, right? Like, how down do you think people would be by the end of the night if people made a game out of that?
Might have to call sick and Tuesday as well. So let's put it like that.
I mean, also like I feel like Chris Collinsworth especially does that whenever anyone makes any kind of defensive play. Like if someone blocks a pass or gets a sack, or I feel like he usually says that about the defense. Now here's a guy because it's usually about some guy is going through the offensive line. It's usually that's kind of the context I've seen it in. So I wouldn't be surprised if he says it for like. And also I don't know if he'll say it for Von Miller.
Dude, there should be an over under for that.
Someone else, like someone else who's like a little who's not like that high octane as a profile of like Aaron Donald or Vaughn. If someone besides those two gets a sack on Burrow, I'd expect him to say that.
By the way, just a quick, very interesting note. So Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth both have ties to Cincinnati. So Al Michaels
Michaels
used
as
to
well?
be, yeah, he used to be the Cincinnati Reds broadcaster back in the day. So that was him.
Al Michaels
Yeah,
did baseball as well.
yeah, he's done everything.
Because I know he did call the Miracle on Ice game back in like the 1980 Olympics. He called that back in the day.
I mean, back in the 1970s, he was the Reds radio announcer essentially. So yeah, I mean, he has ties to Cincinnati, and obviously Chris Collinsworth. I mean, he was a wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. So definitely for both of these announcers tomorrow, there's probably a bit of personal kind of nostalgia that we'll see from them. And if Cincinnati does win the Super Bowl, then for Chris Collinsworth, he will probably be very emotional, and like understandably so, seeing his team win a Super Bowl, and he gets to call that. So that would be a cool experience as well. So yeah, I mean, I will be sort of supporting Cincinnati. I don't mind Los Angeles Rams.
I'm supporting Cincinnati, even though I predicted the Rams to win.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the Rams.
I actually hope that I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
prediction.
Anirban picked the Bengals, so I think we're in good shape because he picked the Bengals to beat the Chiefs 2 weeks ago, right? So the only one of 7. There were 7 people on that panel. He was the only one brave enough to pick Cincinnati. So yeah, we'll see what happens. It's kind of an interesting note, right? Because Cincinnati and LA. So LA like entered the season kind of as Super Bowl favorites, like as one of the teams like you'd expect to be in this game. Where Cincinnati, nobody had them even close to the Super Bowl. Maybe like it just seemed too like far-fetched at the time, right? I mean, they finished last in their division. They haven't made the playoffs since 2015. They hadn't even won a playoff game since 1991. So like, I mean, this is just an amazing story. So I do hope they win tomorrow. So we'll see. But regardless of win or loss from Cincinnati or LA, we will be back to recap it live. Or not live, but like after the game, we will have an episode out to recap and give our thoughts fresh from this moment. So yeah, let's see what happens. So yeah, this is sort of our update. And yeah, we will be back regardless, like next week, week after. We'll just keep on giving episodes of The Nest. And yeah, so enjoy the game, everyone, and just stay safe and have a great time with your friends, family, everyone else.
Enjoy. Yeah.
All right. Peace, everyone.